Hi there. It is the middle of May and we have just had a couple of very rainy days. I was not expecting. This was the weekend that I was planning to plant my tomato and pepper plants. I'm not sure yet still if I'm going to do that because after having a very cool earlier spring up until this week, we've had um, every week a couple of days where in the nighttime it would get down into the lower 40s. We even a couple weeks ago were still having some high 30s, which seedling pepper and tomato plants, that would have been, it might have been okay. I could have maybe put row covers on, but I was not having a schedule that would allow me to take them off during the early, in the mid morning, so that they wouldn't kind of roast when it would get hotter during the day or warmer. So that didn't happen. And now, this was the weekend, looking at the forecast, but then today it's going to get pretty warm and like into the low 80s, I think. And tomorrow or Tuesday, it might even get into 90. So I'm doing some research earlier today, and that may be harmful. The poor little plants being newer seedlings that have not been out in the straight sun. They've been on the porch getting some sun. That may be too much sun and too much heat. So I'm going to do that a little more research. I will bring you along when I do plant them. But something I can do today for sure is get some seeds planted for some things that are best direct sown, meaning you put the seeds straight into the garden. So today I am going to be planting cucumber seeds and green bean seeds, and I'm going to try to direct sow a few more herbs than what I was able to start from seeds. So let me show you what I've got. Cucumbers, I have 3 varieties that I'm going to do. I'm going to try this one this year, straight 8, as a possibility for making kind of a more traditional pickle and just to try a different variety. I tried a pickling cucumber a couple of years ago that was a different variety, and I'll be honest, I wasn't a fan. I needed to get out and get them picked as soon as they were the right size, before they stayed on the vine very long, and they would very quickly, if I didn't catch them right away, get really an unpleasant size, texture, etc. So I'm going to try one of these plants again, this year, to see how that goes. If I like these, okay, to make pickles. And then these two, Bait Alpha has been my steady Eddie. I actually got originally these from Baker Creek. The website is rareseeds.com. I'm not an affiliate, I just like their things. They have all heirloom types of plant seeds, and this is a great cucumber. It makes the ones, hang on a second, that are like the little bit longer, thinner. I think sometimes in the store they sell them and call them English cucumbers, so pretty seedless, thinner skins, and just a great producer. It's been very reliable. And then this one I think is supposed to be similar. So we're going to give that a try. I think I grew both of these last year, but I did not do a good job keeping track of where I planted which one. So I'm going to be very strategic this year. This variety is going to go across the back here, mixed in with the onions. And yes, that's okay, because their cucumbers are going to grow up onto the fencing and not really take up bed space. The roots for onions don't go that deep, because when they start to form their bigger bulbs, those actually push up out of the ground. So they work together pretty okay. And then the Bait Alpha I'm going to put over on this corner so that they're not super close, and I can hopefully keep track which is which. And then the, hang on. And then the straight 8 will go right here in the middle. So to plant seeds, you basically just need to look at the back of your seed packet. Generally, the bigger the seed, the deeper it tends to require planting. Cucumber seeds, according to this packet, this is a variety from M.I. Gardner, also a really good seed company with a lot of heirloom, if not mostly heirloom types of seeds. And this says 1 inch. And the Baker Creek package says 1/2 inch. So somewhere between 1 inch and 1/2 inch. And the thing about plants, it's not that big of a deal. It doesn't have to be exact. No need to get out a ruler. But basically what I'm going to do is just figure out where I'm going to plant. So the straight 8, I'm going to kind of line up with this post. And so I can see I've got an onion right here. So I'm going to kind of split the difference. And just kind of back here, I'm going to just dig a hole with my finger. And then I'm going to drop a couple seeds in there. That way I have a backup in case one of them doesn't germinate. But then I'm just going to bloop, bloop, drop those in there. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of my Biotone Plus starter fertilizer, which I tend to do anytime I'm planting seedlings, new plants that I've gotten in the flower beds, or starting seeds. I sprinkle just a little bit to give it a little something to help it get going after it germinates. The initial nutrition it needs is in the seed itself, but then that's it. Put it in there, cover it up. If you want to put a little bit of fertilizer, you can. And then once it starts to germinate, I will train it to go up this fence. Usually it doesn't take a whole lot. I usually don't even have to like tie it up here beyond maybe the first little bit. So let me get these planted and then we'll move on to the green beans. Okay, for green beans, I have 3 types of green beans that I'm going to be planting, and I'm going to put 2 different kinds over here. Blue Lake, which these are the original seeds that I bought how long ago? 3 years ago, maybe even 4. Blue Lake, it's what you would typically get if you bought a can of green beans from the grocery store, and they have been great producers for me. And seeds or something, just as a side note, that generally, as long as you store them properly in a cool place away from a lot of direct sun and heat, they can last for years and years and years. So these should you do just fine. Beans are a little bit bigger of a seed, and so these want to be planted about 1 inch deep. It says to, according to the packet, I think you're supposed to plant them around 6 inches apart. 3 inches apart. But then your rows, you would do 18 to 30 inches apart. I tend to sow a little bit closer for the rows, obviously because I have a smaller space here where I'm growing. But I will plant them probably around 3 to 4 inches apart. And then I'll probably do 3 rows right here of the Blue Lake. And then I'm also doing these called French Fillet. I really like the long, thin green beans that you get if you order something like a haricot vert dish as a side in a restaurant. Oh, that's an old note. But you can see they are kind of long and thin. And both of these are a bush type of bean plant. A lot of beans can be grown as what's called pole beans, and I tried that last year. I wasn't a huge fan, although it can save you on some bed space. I prefer them to be just here where I can get to them. I don't lose track of them. You can see here's where I did a pole bean last year, and I mean they stayed relatively in this area, but I just lost track and wasn't harvesting as they were getting ready. And what I have found with the bush variety, they tend to have a bigger bunch that's ready all at the same time. So it makes it a little less of an issue of getting them harvested. So anyways, we're going to put the fillet style here and the bush ones, the Blue Lake here. And then the other varieties are ones that I'm going to plant as what we would call a succession. So as I am get things harvesting from other places, like when the garlic gets harvested, that area will get replaced with some other green beans. And I have a couple other varieties that I'll be trying this year. There's this Antiqua, Odeon, and Calama. And they're all pretty much similar, just different varieties, just to see what seems to be the best. It's always fun to try different varieties. So this works basically the same way. I'm just going to literally poke holes here in the soil. I'm going to try not to get too close to, I've got a few onions here that I'm trying to grow that, as you can see, are very spindly. I had some arugula growing here earlier in the spring, and it really got kind of big and bushy and was shading them out. So I'm just gonna plant some holes here, and as you can see, the broccoli is creating quite a shade cover right now and has not actually started producing any broccoli. So we'll see how long these guys last, but it won't hurt anything for them to give a little bit of shade initially, especially not that anything's going to germinate, I don't think, in the next 24 hours, but over the next few days where it's going to be really hot and sunny, it's not a bad thing that we've got a little bit of shade from these broccoli plants. So I'm going to just pop some holes in here, plop in the seeds, sprinkle a little of the starter fertilizer over top, and then we're done. So thanks for joining me planting some seeds here in Aunt Susan's garden. If I decide to plant the peppers and tomatoes, or when I do, I'll bring you along for that too.